being here today at People's Bank Park and in the brand new 1741 Club presented by UPMC. This is one of the very first events in this space. We're thrilled to be able to share it with you. I'll tell you just a little more about it at the end of the program. I do want to start by recognizing some very important people here today. They are very important because they help write my paycheck. First and foremost, our principal owner and managing partner, Bill Shipley. There's another group of folks who've come into the Revolution family as owners and investors within the past 3 or 4 months, and a number of them are Rotarians, and most of them are here today. And that is Dan Waltersdorf, Lauren Crow, Matt Summer, Mike and Jackie Summers, and Bill Hartman. Please join me in thanking them. Our first speaker today is Rick White. Rick has been president of the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball for about 4 years now, I think it is, Rick. That follows a 30-year career, first with Major League Baseball and then a number of other leading national sports companies. Under his leadership, the Atlantic League has flourished, including becoming nationally prominent through our relationship with Major League Baseball. So to talk about our league and our groundbreaking new Major League Baseball partnership, please welcome, once again, Atlantic League President Rick White. And Rick is stuck to the chair.
Boy, oh boy, there's always a kink, but I didn't think I'd be the first one to get stuck on a metal chair today. Thank you very much, Eric. Bill, good to see you. Players, Rotarians, guests, students, nice to see you all. This is, as you know, my favorite day of the year in Atlantic League Baseball. It's such a wonderful group to revisit with every year. I'm always delighted when Eric extends the invitation. Always, you know, it gets to about December and I'm like, is it coming? Is it coming? And we're in January and February. It's always been nice that he's invited me, and it's delightful to be with you. I had a couple of things to talk with you about today. I'm going to introduce you to an umpire. I'm sure you aren't going to expect the introduction. He isn't going to say much in return, but we'll get to that in due course. First off, this is just a beautiful, beautiful environment. What the club has done this year with the 1741 club is unique in our league. It is a tremendous facility. This, for me, like many of you, is the first time I've seen it, and it is marvelous. I've heard reports about it, I've heard news about it, but now to be here, feel it, and enjoy it is really special. Eric, you and the entire club should be congratulated. It's beautiful. Every time I've come here, I've always said to myself, what theme should I talk about today? And we've come up with some things. You may recall I've shown you a new baseball along the way. I've talked about news with the league. But this year, there wasn't a whole lot that I had to debate when it came to saying, what are we going to talk about? First off, this year, you're going to see a new entry into the league. Starting about 2.5 years ago, we began a dialogue with High Point, North Carolina. For those of you involved in the decorative arts, you're well versed in High Point. They host 2 annual furniture fairs that are amongst the most influential trade events in the country. But they're now also going to be the host of the new Atlantic League High Point Rockers. We're going to occupy a ballpark built specifically to league specifications. Interestingly, this will be the first ballpark in our league that has a 100% artificial surface. That's important for what we're trying to do with our ballparks. Much like the model that's been created in York, what we're trying to do is to create a community gathering place and recreational asset. And in High Point, our ball club and our ballpark will also be hosting various field and diamond sports events for High Point University, including soccer, field hockey, rugby, and the like. They will also become the home of the local high school, including the local and state high school playoffs. And this will also be a gathering place for children of all ages. Again, the artificial surface allows us to do that in a very interesting and in a very thoughtful way. Second, we are delighted that this year we're going to reconvene in York for the All-Star Game. And again, what a great showplace for the league, what a tremendous opportunity for us to gather in York and be in your community for a much more impactful presence than merely our clubs coming to play here. The biggest news, however, this year I want to share with you is that which we've worked on for literally years. In February, we announced that we were literally partnering with Major League Baseball. Now that to you may not seem like a big deal, but this is the first time in the history of professional baseball, which goes back well over 100 years, the first time in history that Major League Baseball has publicly recognized an independent professional minor league. Our league is incredibly proud of that accomplishment, and it's due to an enlightened board and leadership on that board that I'm able to say that. Now, a partnership is one thing, and you might say, well, what in the world does that have to do with the Atlantic League? Well, two things in particular. Number one, last year, from January 1st through December 31st, we sent 70 players to big league organizations. Now think about that. Mark's squad has 25 men on its roster. We have 8 teams. That's 200 gentlemen who play baseball in the Atlantic League. 35% of our players were transferred to Major League Baseball organizations through the calendar year 2018. Literally when I sat down today, I mean literally when I sat down, I received a call from the Seattle Mariners. They just transferred, or they just purchased the contract to one of our players, which makes 5 players we've sold this spring. And last I checked, we haven't played a game yet. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So the relationship with Major League Baseball starts with players, and it has to do with the fact that we are the league of choice for players who either want to get back to big league baseball or want a second chance to get to big league baseball. And I dare say that over the years, we've sent nearly 900 players to big league baseball. Last year, we had 21 alumni playing in the big leagues, and we've sent over the years roughly 150 players back to big league baseball. So we're very proud of that. The gist of the partnership, though, is very different than you might think. We are now, because of the quality of our players, the single league where Major League Baseball will test and experiment with all of those rules and equipment that they wish to take to big league baseball in the future. They aren't doing it with affiliated baseball. They aren't doing it with colleges. They aren't doing it with other independent leagues. They're doing it with the Atlantic League, not because we're so special, but because our players are so special. They play to win every night. They have incredible experience. They're this far away from big league baseball. In fact, nearly 120%, half of our players have big league experience already. So when you come out to the ballpark and you see one of our games, you're seeing truly gifted athletes who are this far away from getting back to the show. Let me tell you some of the things we're going to do, and I think you'll be interested in the game you're going to be seeing starting soon in York. Number one, we're going to be using a different sized base. Instead of a traditional 15-inch square base, we're going to be using 18-inch square bases. Major League Baseball wants to improve player safety. They want to improve action on the ballpark or on the field, and they want to have more base runners. When you increase the size of a base by 3 inches, intuitively you know that today's bang-bang play is going to be tomorrow's safe call, so you'll have more batter runners. There will be no mound visits permitted this year by coaches, managers, or players, with the exception of removing a pitcher or attending to an injury. Again, Major League Baseball's goal is to move the game along. We were the leaders in terms of limiting mound conferences years ago when we started our Pace of Play initiative, and they picked up on that. The field this year is going to look a little different. Most of of you are familiar with two batter's boxes and then a square behind those batter's boxes in the plate where the catcher's supposed to reside. The only reason that there's a catcher's box is to prevent catchers from stepping out of position when a pitch is thrown. The only time that ever happens is in the past with intentional base on balls. Well, for those of you who follow the Revs, you know that we no longer have a traditional intentional base on balls. We wave the runner to first base, he trots down to first, and we avoid having to go through 4 blah-blah pitches. We are no longer going to have a catcher's box because it's become a moot issue. So we're changing the way the field looks. We're going to deploy an anti-shift rule. We're going to reduce the time between innings from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 45 seconds. And again, we're going to move the game along. A pitcher this year will have to face 3 batters or reach the end of an inning before he may be removed. So we're doing some very interesting things. Perhaps the most interesting thing, though, goes back to that introduction I told you about. So for those of you seated in the corners, you may not be able to see this very well, but for everybody here in the center section, I'd like to point to you that thing that looks like a flat screen television just outside the window. That is actually a Doppler radar tracking device called TrackMan. That little device can tell you within inches of its release from a pitcher's hand the velocity of that pitch, the spin rate of that pitch. Over the course of its arc toward home plate, it can tell you exactly how far a curveball or a slider moved. It can tell you if a rising fastball is actually rising. And perhaps most interestingly for our purposes, it can tell you where it passes over the plate. So for the first time in the history of baseball, that's a big statement, the first time in the history of baseball, we are going to be using that device to call balls and strikes. Now, a lot of people refer to it in a lot of ways. We prefer to refer to this as an automated system, assisting umpires. But for the players to my left, they will all tell you the one thing they look for from any umpire is consistency in terms of calling balls and strikes. And when you have 80 umpires in a league, it stands to reason 1 or 2 might not be as good as the others, or 1 or 2 might have their own version of a strike zone that isn't necessarily consistent with the rule book. We're eliminating all of that this year. And probably within about 30 to 35 days, balls and strikes will be called by the TrackMan system, which is truly an incredible thing when you think about it. And the thing that we like about it is completely objective. It doesn't care who's throwing the ball. It doesn't care who's catching or hitting the ball. It doesn't care that they like or don't like a high strike. And it can talk to an operator within seconds in terms of making those calls. So you're going to see a sea change in baseball because not only of TrackMan and umpire-assisted balls and strikes, but because of what we're doing with the partnership with Major League Baseball this year. And that is phenomenally exciting because it means that the York Revolution and 7 other teams in the Atlantic League are helping to frame the destiny of the sport we all love so much. Ultimately, our board decided one thing. Instead of sitting on the sidelines, watching baseball change and following, we wanted to be immersed in the decisions that are going to affect the game for decades to come. And it's nice to think that the changes you're going to be seeing in future years start here in York and in 7 other ballparks in the Atlantic League. So that is my big news today. As usual, it is a pleasure to be with you. I'm delighted separately if you'd like to answer any questions you might have. No, we're not going to go downstairs and call balls and strikes, but we can talk about it. And again, Eric, thank you very much. Rotarians, thank you all.
Thank you, Rick, and we are truly lucky as a league to have Rick's leadership leading us into this innovative partnership. And as Mark mumbled under his breath, TrackMan doesn't even care who the manager is. But speaking of managers, this season Mark Mason is entering his 7th season as at the helm of the York Revolution. And in fact, in that position, he earned his 400th victory as our manager last season. Mark is actually entering his 10th year of employment with the Revolution because, of course, he served as our pitching coach prior to that time. Mark is now the longest tenured manager in the Atlantic League, which I actually think is a very high compliment to him. Because as Rick mentioned, this is a league where we play to win. We play to win. This is not about making sure that a young bonus baby pitcher gets the right number of pitches or the right number of innings. We play to win. The truth of the matter is, I've got a great relationship with Mark, but at the end of the day, if you don't win, you don't get to keep your job as a manager. And so it is a testament to the amount of winning and to the leadership that Mark has brought us that he is now the longest tenured manager in the Atlantic League. In addition to his on-field accomplishments, including 2 Atlantic League championships as our pitching coach and a 3rd as our manager, since Mark's arrival with the Revs in 2010, we've now had 29 players signed in season by major league organizations, and last year we had our 10th former Revolution player under Mark's leadership appear in a major league game. The 2019 season will be Mark's, you might want to cover your ears for this number, Mason. This will be Mark's 31st season as a coach or a manager at either the collegiate or professional level. Before joining the pro game, Mark spent 16 seasons as the head baseball coach at Washington and Jefferson College in Washington, PA. Please join me in welcoming Mark Mason.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Hello again, everybody. Year number 10, as Eric said. So very excited about that. The changes we're very excited about as well. It's been my honor and my privilege to be here as a pitching coach and a manager for all these years. And you get 400 wins because you have good coaches and good players. So good players make good coaches, and bad players make bad coaches, and that's just the way it goes. So there are a couple things I'd like to reiterate a little bit what Rick was talking about. And the one thing I would say is Etch and I were probably right about the umpires, because that is replacing our home plate umpires right now. And I guess we mounted it as far away from the dugouts that we really can't argue either. So, that's going to be interesting for Fletch and myself this year with trying to screen from down there to up there. But anyways, the changes are really good. We're really excited about that. It'll really help our players, and it's great for our league. And for us to be on the cutting edge of that, I'm real excited about that for our players and everybody else. So it will be kind of different with no mound visits. There's certain things we'll adjust to, but our pitchers, if you come to our games and watch me manage, we don't do a whole lot of mound visits anyway. So we expect our guys to go out there and be able to do what they need to do and pitch to 3 hitters or 5 hitters or whatever it is. So we're excited about that, and I'm really happy that our league, after being in this league 20 years ago, and then I left for about 10 years and then came back. Far and away the best league, really is. And the ball players are incredible, major league experience, the talent that you see here every night. So we're really excited about that. And the last thing I would say, last year we missed the playoffs by 1 game. And I was never in a situation where we actually had to lose a game and get help, which is where we were at the end of the year. So the night before the last game, the players said to me, they said, well, what happens if we're winning in the 9th inning tomorrow and we have to lose the game? I said, well, I will hold these fingers up as many times as I have to until we walk in as many runs as it takes for us to get behind in the game. So that would have been a first. That would have been a first for me to intentionally walk in maybe 5 or 6 runs without anybody throwing a pitch. So that was kind of the mindset going in. But it was an interesting year. We had a great year on the field and came up a little bit short, but we believe we have the roster this year, which I'm going to introduce here in a minute, that will get us back into the playoffs and hang another banner up there, which is what we would love to do for our fans here. And in the process, I would like to get as many guys signed as possible. So that's the plan going in, get as many guys signed, win a lot of games, hang a banner, and and then go from there. So anyways, what I'll do at this time is I move around a lot. Look, I'm Italian, I can't stand still. Yeah, no, it's all right. All right, so what I'll do, my team is all over the place here. So what we'll do, I'll introduce my pitchers first, and maybe just scream wherever you're at. Okay, stand up or something. Most of these guys you will not have a hard time seeing. They're pretty big. I always like big guys for the bench clears. That's always good for me. We had a couple of them last year. I'm in the middle of the ruckus, and I'm just standing there, and the other team, like, they backed off, and I thought, all right, maybe I've still got something. And I turned around, and there's like 4 of my guys standing behind me. So that ended that. So my good as I once was day, that went out the window. So anyways, without further ado, let me start with my pitching staff. No, actually, let me start with my staff, which is where I need to start. I have the best staff in the league, with no question. First, my pitching coach, this is his 6th year with me, done a great job, Paul Fletcher. And the next person has been here as long as I have, but he started as a player and is now my third base coach, my hitting coach, Inoel Polanco, Polo. And our bullpen coach, Sandy De Leon. And our athletic trainer who keeps our guys able to get on the field, Mr. Chong Choi.
Yeah.
Chong, are you in there?
Yeah, it's down there.
Oh, there, okay. I thought maybe you stood on a table. Okay. And our clubhouse manager, John Wingate. I don't know if John's here or not, but anyways, that's a tough job being a clubhouse manager. Let me tell you, you have to clean, you have to cook, you have to wash towels and clothes and jerseys and pants and everything. And that's a 24-hour job right there. Believe me, it really is. And I believe that was everybody on my staff. I don't think I missed anybody. Now we can get to my players. So, starting with my pitchers, Mitch Atkins. Andrew Barber. Jonathan DeMarte. Ross Detweiler. Francisco Grishecki. Way on the other side. See you, Frankie. Matt Grimes. Josh Judy. Brian, you have a connection? Jameson McGrain. Dan Miner. Robert Morey. Jose Ortega. Julio Perez. Trevor Reckling. Dustin Richardson. Fabian Roman. Way in the back. Jeffrey Rosa. Troy Terzi. And Dean Thomas. And our catchers, one is not here yet, Carlos Paulino, he's not here yet. We're having a visa issue, I believe, but the ones that are here, Corey Bass, and Isaias Tejeda. Infielders, Alexei Casilla. Henry Castillo. Nate Coronado. That's one of the guys, if you can't beat him, sign him. He wore us out last year, so I was happy to get him here. Ryan Dent. And Telvin Nash. Outfielders, Wellington Dotel. The best dancer on the team, Manger Mason. It's a treat, I'm telling you. JP Sportman. And another guy that wore us out, Justin Trapp. That's what you do if you can't beat them, you sign them, and then they play for us. So, anyways, I'm really excited about our club. If you ever watch batting practice here, balls go out of here like golf balls. So we're really excited about that. And you know, our pitching staff, we have a lot of flamethrowers here this year, so we're excited to get going. And once again, thank you guys for having me. It's been my pleasure all these years. I've changed probably as much as this room has changed over the past 10 years, so every time I show up I have a different look. My bike is parked outside right now, so no, really, it's always my pleasure, and thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Mace. And there's one other change around our organization that you can't necessarily obviously see with your eyes, and that is some news around WOYK, our sports radio station we own that carries Reds games. And here to tell you about that, please welcome one of our longest tenured employees, the voice of the York Revolution, Daryl Henry.
Thank you very much, Eric. Great to see everyone here today. For many of you, I got to see you this morning at the Economics Club breakfast, so if you're hearing me for the second time today, I'm sorry. You're going to hear me a lot beginning on Friday night, and we're really excited about that. But opening days, I mean, going back to 2007, they're all, I mean, incredibly exciting for me, and can't wait to get started. But like Eric said, so many new things around the ballpark this season, including the room that we're currently in, the All-Star game coming this year. You may have noticed the sweet ride out front on your way in today, our new WOYK FM van. So a little bit of my history, I'll keep this brief. I've been involved with Sports Radio 1350 since 2004. I was finishing up my freshman year at York College, calling basketball games on the station, and I absolutely love the programming. I'm really proud. I've been the general manager of the station since 2014. We are now the only locally owned commercial media outlet, whether it's a newspaper, television station, radio station in this area. And nowadays, that's not easy to do. It's really easy to flip a switch, throw on some national programming, and that's it. But we're also the only station that does anything relating to local sports, and that's our bread and butter. So the process of launching the FM signal, which is Sports Radio 98.9 FM and 1350 WOYK, that's the new tagline, a little bit of a mouthful, but kind of rolls off the tongue. But really the planning process started probably 2.5 years ago. And we had to wait for our window to open with the FCC to apply for the signal and all these various things. A couple months ago, the antenna was on the floor of my office, right by the main entrance, in probably about 100 pieces is how it was shipped. And every day I would walk by it and think, you know, I should probably get somebody else to put this thing together. One of the best decisions I've made, and certainly to climb the tower. I am not going to do that. That's where the job description ends. But got some great pictures of our climber going up there and installing everything. But about 6 weeks ago, we made it official, signed on the air. Our first, I guess, official local event on FM was the Delone Catholic Girls Basketball Championship game. And that brings me back to the programming, which we're really proud of. You know, during the winter, it's high school basketball, usually 2 nights a week. Your college basketball, 2 nights a week. High school football, but we also have great regional programming with Hershey Bears coverage. We carry the Capitals through our affiliation with the Bears. They have Game 7 on our station tonight. We carry the Sixers. We had them on last night with that big win. And then the national programming as well, whether it's NFL doubleheaders on Sundays, the entire NCAA tournament, or our daytime hosts with Fox Sports Radio, Dan Patrick, and all of those great hosts. So the programming, really proud of, and the next kind of logical step for us, I thought, was to increase our reach and add the FM signal. It sounds tremendous. One thing that I was thinking as we get toward baseball season, we have a field mic to pick up, you know, the crack of the mitt, the crack of the bat and everything. And I'm thinking, you know, well, now it's in FM clarity. What happens when Mace comes out to argue with the umpire? It's right there. We'll have to dial it back a little bit, but, you know, now TrackMan and everything, so I think we're good. But no, it's been great. What it really does for our advertisers is it really increases the value of our sponsor's message on the station. Again, you know, to do local sports programming, it's not necessarily easy, but we're really proud of what we do, and our sponsors are able to kind of reach an emotional hot button, I guess I would say, with our listeners, whether it's somebody tuned in that you know really cares deeply about what's going to happen on the next possession of the Dallas-Town football game, or if it's a 140 Revs game. So, you know, our listener base is terrific, and again, for our sponsors, it's kind of an emotional buy. People are less likely to turn the channel at commercials. They want to hear what happens next in the game. We find that our listeners tend to spend money with the sponsors that they hear on our station for that reason. So we did it for our listeners, we did it for our sponsors, and proud to say that on Friday night we'll have our first regular season Revs broadcast in FM. We did do the Fan Fest game on Saturday and had a ton of fun with that. So I appreciate having a couple minutes to share that update, one of, again, many updates here at the ballpark this season, and would love to